Go ahead.
All right, good evening. Welcome to the market management presentation from Team Monroe of the Mavericks industry. This presentation is brought to you by me, Samuel Dauphiné. Sophia McIntyre couldn't be here tonight. She's on a business trip this week. And Bryan Weiss. We will be giving a review of the summer 2015 semester in this course, including our firm's overall MarkStrat performance, the lessons we learned along the way as simulated marketing professionals, and the key concepts of marketing and how they applied to this simulation. First, we'll look at the overall firm performance within the Mavericks industry. In this graph, we can see the share price index of Team Monroe, or M, shown here in purple. As you can see, our firm had some rough going early on. In periods 1 through 3, we were in the 5th position out of the 6 firms. In period 4, we were in a virtual tie for the 3rd position and were poised for future successes. We will examine the intricacies of this on the following slide. Unfortunately, by that time in the simulation, we were residing in a very clear second tier of firms as the 2 most successful companies squeezed us out and dominated the market. In the end, we finished in a somewhat disappointing 5th position in terms of SPI. We would like to note, however, that in terms of cumulative net contribution, meaning the total earnings before taxes, our firm finished in a much more respectable 3rd place. In the first graph, here shown in the top left corner, we see the overall picture of the revenues generated by our brands throughout the entirety of the simulation. Early on, we had a lot of success with our Most brand, which is shown in that graph in purple. This was targeted towards the Savers segment. As this was a brand that we inherited in period 0, it did not closely match the ideal values of the customers. This led to its eventual downfall, as other firms created new brands to provide the customers a product that more closely met their expectations. We launched the More brand in period 2 to attract customers from the professional segment and had a lot of success. This was a very high margin product which generated the majority of the firm's revenue. Towards the end, we identified a gap in the market in which we could launch a brand targeting the Explorers segment. MoX, which is shown here in blue, had some success in gaining revenue for the firm. In the second graph, shown in the top right-hand corner, we have the top 5 brands by revenue in the whole industry. In periods 3 and 4, the More brand, which is shown in orange, was the highest earning brand. This is due to the combination of the high margins of the product and the segment dominance that we experienced over this time period. That's shown further in this 3rd graph in the lower left-hand corner. This is the entire history of the professional segment across all 6 periods. This graph is in terms of percentage of units sold within that segment. The 3 initial brands in the segment did not closely match the expectations of the customers, and we capitalized on that opportunity. After launching More in period 2, we grew awareness for our brand, finely tuned perceptions of the product, and controlled the entire segment by period 4. We finished as the #1 brand in the professional segment. In graph number 4 on the lower right corner, we can see the history of the Savers segment through to period 5. Our Most brand was very successful early on, and at one point owned more than 50% of the units sold in the entire segment. Unfortunately, as new brands were launched, our product could not keep up, and our market share dropped significantly. By the end of the simulation, we were hardly funding this product, and we're really just selling off excess inventory.
Thanks, Sam. I'll take it from here for the keys to success. This is Bryan Weiss. So the big keys to success that I don't have on the slide is actually the teamwork that this team put together. I'm actually really proud to say it was an honor working with these guys, Sam and Sophia, certainly. So one of the things we all came up with was, the R&D to launch new products. And so, we did so during the simulation, and we did launch the More product, and that was really a successful product. So we're really proud of that. It was a rocket ship. It took off And some of the things that we, did to launch that product was dial in the number of features that the segments were looking for. Specifically, the more brand was going after the professional segment. So, we tried to maybe straddle it against the high earners, but I'll talk a little bit later as well that you can't really straddle two segments. But we went after the professionals and we did well. And so that was all dialing in the key features that they were looking for the professional segment with the more brand. We also launched it at the lowest cost of goods sold. I think our gross margins were pretty good on this product, and so that was something that really showed in terms of our gross margins. Also, we price pointed it competitively within the market, and we didn't have to adjust price. And so really we looked, and I think Professor, we even asked you about this. So we were able to adjust the perception of the price, and so we were through advertising and the money that we spent, we were able to kind of understand what the price point was and understand that it was a good price that we had positioned it at, but the market wasn't reacting the way we wanted to. So we had to adjust through increased advertising dollars to make the market understand that we had a competitive price and a reasonable price. And so some of the keys to success that we had was basically um, knowing to launch this product in the professional segment, seeing there was an opportunity there. So you're able to look and see, as a whole, what the Sonets market is doing and then position yourself accordingly. Lastly, we kind of understood that, we didn't change the characteristics of our move product, and therefore it started to lose share pretty quickly. And so we understood at that point in the simulation to cut move off or take move off of the market. And so you recognize losing brands as something that was able to increase our bottom line by not having such losses associated with that product. So some of the things we could have done differently for sure would have been launch some R&D projects earlier in the simulation. I think we got our feet wet in the practice period, but we didn't really take advantage of or recognize early on that the market would turn so quickly against a product that didn't have the ideal values that the segments were looking for. And that happened to us a little later in the segment, and we unfortunately weren't. We had to launch another product late, and we just didn't have time to get enough leeway, enough movement in the market to really sustain the revenues that we were looking for. So that's certainly, was something that I think if you take away from this class is to understand what the competition's doing and recognize if you need to pivot, do so accordingly and timely. Next, when we took this loan out, oh, I'm sorry, go back, please. Thank you. So when we took the loan out, though, basically, we were spending money on a product that really wasn't a winner. And so that was something else it ties into launching the R&D projects, but certainly recognizing a product that isn't ideal for selling, and the market didn't react, and yet we're spending all this money that we took out a loan to try and get the awareness up. So that was really something we would have definitely done differently. And then lastly, we tried to balance some of the decisions we were making, and when we took when we took the product off the market, we just took it off. We weighed the cost, but you don't want to remove a product with having excess inventory because it's just going to detriment your bottom line. Conversely, I think really where we failed with the more product was we had an opportunity in two periods to sell more product, but we didn't produce enough. And so, I think the idea of this simulation is to really end the simulation with zero inventory, but the takeaway is to produce excess inventory on a product that is on the upswing, if you will, and be able to carry that over into the next period because you're going to sell it anyway, rather than sell out and leave money on the table. So some of the key marketing concepts that we took away, certainly from segmentation and targeting. So you can see on the bottom of the slide the segments that we went after with our products. And this is really clear to any business. Who are your customers? What are their wants and needs? This is a key marketing concept that's pretty simplistic in nature. So we're able to definitely recognize that we were going after specific segments with specific products. We certainly saw that there were a number of units that we sold with that trickle down effect, word of mouth and people trying things out. But the bulk of our sales were within a specific segment, and I think that's true in the real world. You'll have people trying different things, but primarily businesses need to know who their customers are, and that was a big takeaway from this class that we had this summer.
Our next key marketing concept is product. A product isn't necessarily a physical object that's sold. It can be an experience. It can be an event. Um, Really, in this simulation, we were selling physical products. Um, the key thing here is that we have to understand and really recognize what our product is and what the market is looking for. So in the simulation, we use the perceptual maps to very closely gauge and adjust the perceptions of our product um, and line them up with the ideal values of the segment that we were targeting. This allowed us to increase our revenue significantly, as we saw with the More brand, and that led to a large amount of success with our company. Our next concept is price. Obviously, this is fairly self-explanatory. This is just the cost of the commodity and how it can be bought or sold. In the simulation, we had an experience with our More product, which the perception of the price of the product was very high. But rather than actually adjust the price of our product, we adjusted the perception through creative advertising. And again, with MoX, we were able to gauge our competitors and adjust the perceptions of the product rather than change the price of the product and lose out on potential revenue.
So when it comes to place, key marketing concepts, so certain customers like to buy their products in certain channels, and so we noticed that for the More product, it was the specialty stores, which was seems to be the high end stores and the unique ones, and places where you get a little better customer service and you're catered to, and so that really goes into what type of customer you're looking for and what type of product you're selling to them. Um, we recognize that there are different channels, and certainly online these days seems to be one that's busting at the seams. So we put resources there, but you didn't seem to need as many resources in that channel because the availability of the online retail world is robust. So it seems for our two products, it was more specialty stores, and then of course the mass merchant being where high volume and maybe big box discount type stores, and you'll get a little better price there as a customer. So certainly not from a business perspective. That's really the ideal situation because there's always discounts involved, but still a profitable channel nonetheless. And so from a promotion perspective, another key marketing concept, you could think about how advertising dollars are spent and what you're doing with them. And so we definitely understood that, if you look at something like Apple, a company, and it's really apropos to what we were doing here, selling cell phones, I believe. So if you look at their advertising and how they do it, so yeah, they're going to spend a lot of money for a Super Bowl ad, but then the way they do it in the 1984 Super Bowl commercial was just tremendous, right? So, you have this power of promotion and this word of mouth, and these days it's social media. So I think really the effectiveness of the advertising in terms of style and creativity is really something that is very powerful in marketing and business. And so we kind of did that. We stayed with the 15% spend of our allocation of our total research or total advertising dollars to understand that that would go towards this promoting of our product. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I mean, conclusively, when you think about how do you market a product, right? So it's what are your customers' needs and desires? What's your competition doing? What's going on out in the real world? What can you do differently? I think one of the other things that I really want to talk about is, with respect to the simulation, you kind of had this proactive approach, where I actually want to start with a reactive approach. Basically, you're kind of, running the periods, and on Monday morning, you're going in and checking and seeing where you are, and then you're kind of reacting to that. But as you're simultaneously reacting, you're also proactively thinking, okay, well, everyone else is reacting, so what are they going to do next? And that's just how business works these days, is where, there's constant churn of ideas and how you can move your product out in the market to make it more profitable. So that was enjoyable, and that was kind of, I think if anything, when you take away from the simulation, it gets you thinking, it gets your competitive juices flowing, and that was enjoyable. really from a marketing standpoint, this class kind of also taught us, what the segments are looking for and also how they change over time. And kind of, in a nutshell, really, that you always have to be on your toes when it comes to what's hot, what's new, again, social media, and kind of, build your products around that as well as your competition. And there were just so many intricacies that we found during the simulation that, it kind of made your head spin for a little while, but I think we did a pretty good job. I'm very proud of the team the way we finished. Although we ended up in fifth, we weren't last, so that's important. So I think that's it for now. So thank you for your time, and we'll talk to you soon.